Bill Belichick will not be a first ballot Hall of Famer, thanks to a great article that is worth reading from Don Van Natta and Seth Wickersham. The eight time, say it again, 8 times, say it with my chest, 8-time Super Bowl winning head coach fell short of the 40 out of 50 votes needed for induction to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in his first year of eligibility. It should be noted they changed the voting procedures this year. Many voters are pointing to the fact that 5 men were up in this one particular side category over here. You had to vote for 3 of 5. There's nuance to why it's possible he was left off the ballot. At least that's what some people are trying to shove down our throats. But Caroline, this is, I think, the most embarrassing day in Pro Football Hall of Fame history.
This is so stupid. And look, Fitz, you mentioned chaos and controversy. I love chaos and controversy. It's part of the reason why I love the NFL. I think the NFL is one of the world's greatest soap operas. But this is just dumb. This is stupid. This is inexplicable. This is a total and complete stain on Canton, on the Pro Football Hall of Fame, a gold jacket, the penultimate honor in all of professional football. This is a massive indictment on the entirety of the process. Because if not Bill Belichick, then who? Like, I will admit, we throw the term first ballot Hall of Famer around probably far too much. But first ballot Hall of Famer, to me, is reserved for the people who deserve it. I almost feel like sometimes we need like a secondary Hall of Fame for people like Tom Brady, for people like Bill Belichick, who have careers and who have resumes that are just far and beyond what anyone else has accomplished in this sport. Bill Belichick has 8 Super Bowls, 6 as a head coach. Bill Belichick is the second winningest coach in the history of the National Football League. Bill Belichick has rewritten the history books of the National Football League. Bill Belichick changed culture in the NFL. You know how many times we've talked about the Belichick way and the Patriot way? How many players and former coaches that come from the Belichick and the Patriots coaching tree? Mike Vrabel comes from the Belichick tree, not as a coach, but as a player. He's now coaching in the Super Bowl. Even though Bill's no longer in the National Football League, we still feel his presence and his DNA scattered throughout the entirety of the National Football League. First ballot Hall of Famer is reserved for people like Bill Belichick. I'm not a Patriots fan. I'm not even like a Bill Belichick fan. But real recognize real. And I can acknowledge when somebody deserves something and is really the poster child for a certain honor. And that is what Bill Belichick is for being a first ballot Hall of Famer. Shame on all of the voters who did not vote for Bill Belichick. This is so embarrassing for the Hall of Fame.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, they always say in comedy that if you have to explain your joke afterwards, the joke was not well written. If you have to explain your process afterwards, if you have to sit here and say, wait, it could be a technicality, then your process is broken. Now, I want to make it very clear. I have friends that vote in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Some of the best mentors in my career. My life was changed by John McClain, who's a Pro Football Hall of Fame voter. So I want to make it very clear that I'm not talking about every Hall of Fame voter here. I am talking about the Hall of Fame voters that decided for whatever reason not to vote for Belichick. Some have said it could be because they wanted to make sure other votes went to other people because Belichick's eventually going to get in. That's a failed lottery.
That's not how it works.
I've heard 100%. I've heard many people talk about Spygate and Deflategate, and I will say loudly to the Pro Football Hall of Fame voters, that's not your punishment to divvy out. At the end of the day, any rings that that belong to the New England Patriots in years that you might find controversial, we're not taking back. Any wins during that time were not revoked. The NFL gave their punishments for what they felt those controversies were. Who the hell do the Hall of Fame voters think they are to turn around and then repunish, especially when the bylaws of the Pro Football Hall of Fame say the only thing that you can take into account is what they did on the field. Remember, there are murderers and rapists in the NFL Hall of Fame that can't be taken out of it because the bylaws specifically say, OJ, it doesn't matter what you did off the field, you are still a Hall of Famer. There's certainly been controversy around guys like Lawrence Taylor post their playing career. They're still Hall of Famers. So let's separate everything and just talk about what you're supposed to talk about, the result. The problem here isn't just that he was left off. The problem is that the system and the process is broken. And the biggest problem with that is transparency. I want to know every single voter's path. I want to know every single voter's vote. And I think we deserve that. We deserve that in society as a whole. I have said many times on this show, I think I'm the only person in the history of the world to get a vote for the best wide receiver in college football, the Biletnikoff Award, and a Grammy vote for my work in music. And you know what? If they want to publicize that every year, every day, of course, I'm all in for that. Because if I have the honor and the privilege of voting and I treat it with the respect that it deserves, and frankly, I know most Hall of Fame voters that I've ever talked to treat it with great deference. If I'm willing to put all that work into it, then hell yeah. Tell the world who I voted for. Right now, the Pro Football Hall of Fame needs to turn around and they need to make the Belichick vote public. And if your question is why, my answer is accountability. If someone did not vote for Bill Belichick, then I question their worthiness of being a Hall of Fame voter. I want to say that loud and proud, even if I'm pissing my own friends off. At the end of the day, if you put your needs, if you put your opinions, if you put your feelings ahead of what that man accomplished on the football field, you don't deserve to vote anymore. The very people that are deciding who end up in the Hall of Fame should have their ability to continue to make those decisions decided on by the way that they did it. It's absolutely asinine to me that nobody's going to step up and tell us exactly who voted for who. I want to know who didn't vote for Bill. I then want them to justify why, and I believe that the entire Pro Football Hall of Fame should turn around and ask themselves why those ladies and gentlemen that chose not to vote for Bill Belichick still deserve a chance year in and year out to decide who a Hall of Famer is.
I do believe in transparency in everything, in every decision that anyone makes in sports and in life. I would appreciate more transparency in the Hall of Fame voting process because for somebody to justify not voting for one of the greatest coaches in the history of this sport, probably one of the greatest coaches in the history of sport, period. If they want to justify it and saying, well, we wanted to vote for other people who may not be on the ballot in the future, that's not good enough for me. That's not how the process works. That is totally twisting and manipulating the voting process. You don't get to do that. You don't get to justify it by saying, well, Bill will get in at some point. We're not that worried about Bill. No, you vote for who is worthy to be in the Hall of Fame based off of this ballot, point blank, period. You're not allowed to manipulate the process. So transparency, I would hope and would think, I could justify in saying that transparency could eliminate manipulation in the process. Now, we've heard a lot of thought that, like you mentioned, Deflategate and Spygate are the reason why some people didn't vote for Bill Belichick to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I've heard Bill Polian's name thrown out there a lot, that reportedly he was one that was kind of politicking with some of the voters to leave Bill out and have him serve that 1-year penance, so to speak, for Spygate and Deflategate. Now, I know Bill Polian's name is always going to be attached to the New England Patriots in a negative way. I know Patriots fans, Patriot Nation, probably a lot of front office members from those great Patriot teams probably don't like Bill Polian very much. But Bill Polian was interviewed. There's a great article on ESPN.com. And he said that Polian denied telling fellow voters that Belichick should serve a 1-year penance for Spygate. He said, quote, he heard some fellow voters float that idea, but insisted he didn't agree or disagree with the proposal. He said he couldn't remember 100% if he voted for Belichick, but he was 95% sure that he voted for the coach and a player, most likely Greenwood. That sounds a little fishy to me. I don't know, Fitz, if I 100% totally and completely believe that. I'm not going to agree or disagree with people who were anti-Belichick going in this year. I'm like 95% sure that I voted for Bill Belichick. So I don't want to just point the finger at Bill Polian because surely it's not just him. There are at least 10 people who didn't vote for Bill Belichick, but that feels a little fishy to me.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he doesn't remember who he voted for in the process feels really problematic. You're saying fishy. I'll go farther. It feels problematic to me. Like you're a voter in something that takes a person's entire life work and then decides what the value of it is. Like I'm stunned by this. And my question for Bill Polian, if in fact Bill Polian did sort of lobby the room, or to whoever did lobby the room to have Spygate and Deflategate factor into the Belichick decision, my question then becomes: is that going to apply to Brady too? Like, are you going to put your where your mouth is, and then all of a sudden not vote in Tom Brady as a first
What
ballot
about
Hall of
Kraft?
Famer? Is that the inevitability? Like, I mean that all right. I mean, we haven't heard anything about Kraft, who was part of that same group of 5 players, and Kraft has been lobbying to get included into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, hot and heavy behind the scenes for a long time. We haven't heard anything about that. And frankly, if Bill Polian is standing up saying, I'm 95% certain and I think I voted for another player too, this again becomes a moment where let us see it. I mean, I've seen some Pro Football Hall of Famers on Twitter, and for anyone that doesn't know, you're not supposed to tell anybody how you voted. That's the way that they work this. Now, some Hall of Famers are just out here in the streets letting everybody know, hey, this is how I voted. I really don't care how they feel about it. Some Hall of Famers are saying, we don't talk about who we voted, but I can tell you I'd have no problem if there was transparency. We're seeing a lot of tweets from some people. If Bill Polian's 95% sure and says he didn't start this, and there's controversy around the report, that controversy could be cleaned up by one thing: show us the vote. Right? Like the NFL could respond to this ESPN article by showing us Bill Polian's vote. Like that's a very simple solution. If he didn't lobby the room, if he wasn't trying to keep him out, if he's not 100% sure who he voted for, if it's going to leave question marks, Caroline, you can answer the question marks pretty easy. You just got to show us the vote. It just keeps coming back to that. And your point on Kraft is an important one, because we have not yet heard if Robert Kraft has advanced and is going to make the Pro Football Hall of Fame. If Kraft makes the Hall of Fame and Belichick doesn't, I just don't even know what to say. I don't know what to say if we are really going to be in a society where we're going to reward ownership over the greatest coach of all time, at least in our generation. I can't make that make sense in my mind.
We even had this discussion a couple months ago about would Kraft even get into the Hall of Fame, because the owners don't have a very long or rich history of getting into the Hall of Fame. The only reason why Robert Kraft would get into the Hall of Fame is because of that man and because of Tom Brady. If Robert Kraft gets in this go around before Bill Belichick, shame on everybody involved.